because they want to get the remaining living hostages home. And there are still a large number of people who are stuck inside Gaza.
Yes, indeed. And we're going to speak to somebody who is campaigning for his brother-in-law in just a moment's time. But I just want to bring you a line when it comes to the images that we were seeing a little bit earlier on of the hostages being released and also the Palestinian prisoners being released as well. The Red Cross critical at the centre of the hostages being released. We see their cars as they bring the hostages to them and then take them back to Israel. The Red Cross has just within the past few moments has called for the next hostage prisoner swap to be held in private. So the Red Cross is calling for these images to be held, to not be displayed like this. They want these hostages to be held in private, and arguably, especially earlier on, we were seeing in various, when it came to releases, a really turbulent moment with a lot of chaos, with people taking photos of the hostages, taking images of the hostages, and also this happening earlier on today. These 3 Israeli hostages, as Joe Inwood was saying, they're looking gaunt, their condition of real concern as to the state they're in, but arguably Hamas using this as a possibility, as a propaganda position, because it shows them in a position of power. It shows them as very much within Gaza, as monitoring the situation and being in control of the situation in Gaza. And arguably that is what the Israeli government do not want. They want, as part of this, one of the things that they wanted as part of the ceasefire deal is the removal of Hamas. But when we're seeing here is very much Hamas being in a position of strength. So the Red Cross just calling for the next hostage prisoner swap to be held in private. So these kind of distressing images, incredibly distressing for the families of the hostages, that they do not have to see this so publicly. So now let's speak to somebody who has been campaigning tirelessly for the release of the hostages, Moshe Lavi. Moshe, welcome to BBC News. You have been campaigning for your brother-in-law, Omri Miran, to be released. Omri was taken hostage on October the 7th by Hamas. Just tell us, first of all, can we start with what do you know about Omri's condition and what do you understand about his release?
Thank you for having me today. I wish I knew what to answer. I don't know anything about Omri's condition. The Hamas and their accomplices don't allow the ICRC or any other international organization to visit the hostages to ensure that they received proper treatment, proper nutrition, that they're not abused and tortured. What I do know is that I watched the scenes today and I saw 3 men who were starved, who were abused, were deprived of sunlight, food, water and sanitation. And I'm very concerned about Omri. It just highlights that we need to ensure that phase 2 happens as soon as possible, that we can't delay the release of all the hostages who remain captive if we want to see them home alive. I believe we will meet Omri again, that my sister Lishai will hug him, that my nieces will kiss him, but time is of the essence. He needs to be home.
Moshe, Omri was taken from Kibbutz Nahal Oz. It's where Lishai were hiding in a safe room with your nieces, with Ronnie and Alma, tiny, tiny little girls at that stage. Just tell us what happened to your sister and her family, because it was incredibly traumatic while they were in that safe room. Describe what happened, if you could relive that.
Yes, certainly. My entire immediate family experienced October 7th to various degrees, because they were all in the area where I grew up. But Lishai and Omri experienced the worst. Hamas terrorists barged into their home, first through the windows of the bathroom, and then they used a teenager boy from the kibbutz, Tomer, to lure them to open the door. Lishai and Omri opened it in order to save Tomer's life. And that's when the terrorists entered their home. Sadly, Tomer's body was found a few days later. He was killed on October 7th. But Omri and Lishai could not have known that. So for hours more, they were held captive in their own home. My nieces, Ronnie and Alma, were held at gunpoint. Ronnie was awakened with terrorists surrounding her and pointing a gun at her face. They were later grouped with another family in the kibbutz. This was all live streamed on Facebook of one of the captives who were held hostage in kibbutz Nachal Oz. They took her phone and filmed it. And around 1:30 p.m., Omri, with a few others, was handcuffed and taken hostage to the Gaza Strip. My sister told him she loves him, she'll take care of the girls, and asked him not to be a hero. But he has been a hero ever since, surviving, and we're waiting to see him. Luckily, my sister and my nieces were rescued that day at 5:30 p.m. by the IDF. We could have lost them as well. I could have lost my entire family, but luckily we are whole, but not entirely whole, because we're still waiting for Omri to return.
Moshe, I appreciate you just talking us through that just unimaginable difficulty using a 16-year-old child to coax and to get Omri and Lishai to open that door. Unimaginable what they were experiencing. Just when it comes to Lishai, how is she? How are the children?
Lishai is a true lioness. She inspires me every day. She's keeping the faith. She's strong. She's leading the way of our advocacy work in Israel and abroad. I conscripted in this terrible war to her cause and the cause of all the hostages. That is the prime mission we should have. And she's giving us the light and the strength to keep pushing elected officials, whether in Israel or worldwide, to prioritize the hostages, to keep talking to communities, speaking to you, the media as well, to raise awareness. And Lishai, at the same time, as she is an advocate, she's also a mother. She's making sure that Ronnie and Alma are coping with the situation. Ronnie remembers everything. She's 3 years old now, 3.5 years old. So she remembers everything. Lishai tries and make sure she's holding strong. Only a few days ago, she wished to a flower, because she's very connected to nature, like Omri is, that Omri will return. And Alma, 1.5 years, doesn't remember anything, of course, or at least we don't know whether she remembers, but she knows who her father is. And she asked my sister that she wants to see him. And that's why I'm doing everything I can. My sister is doing everything she can. And all our family is united until Omri is home, until we can make sure Ronnie and Alma can hug their father again.
Moshe, we know that, of course, they're desperate to see their father. And as you await for news on Omri, on his condition, on when he potentially will be released, just thinking about this ceasefire deal, we're talking about it as being fragile. We understand, as the outgoing US President Joe Biden was saying, that this was his deal. This had been agreed months and months and months ago. Now that you are waiting for so long for this next stage of this ceasefire deal, I just wonder if you can just express whether you feel frustrated or angry that it's taken so long, given that this was potentially could have been done in the summer, if not even earlier.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to comment. I'm not in the room. I'm not a policymaker or strategist or military strategist. So I don't know what hindered negotiations before. I do know the previous administration, the Biden administration, emphasized every time that Hamas is holding back, is not willing to negotiate in good faith, and they were not able to get a breakthrough. I do know as well that there are other interests in our government, Israeli government, that may have prevented the deal to be struck. But right now we're focused on the fact that we have a deal that the Biden administration initiated, a deal that, thanks to the Trump administration and his amazing team, it has been signed and the release has started. We're in phase 1. And what I said this week in Washington, D.C. to members of Trump's team and to other communities and elected officials is that we have to expedite the release of all the hostages. Every hostage is a humanitarian case. This is not a humanitarian phase 1. This is everyone should be considered humanitarian at this point, and we saw it today with the terrible footage from Gaza. And so I hope that elected officials understand they have to push to phase 2 and conclude this deal as soon as possible, so that both Israelis and Gazans can start rehabilitate, can start recover. And we in Israel, I can assure you, we will, after all the hostages release, we will call for a national inquiry committee to ensure that those who are responsible for October 7th on our side, for the failures of October 7th, of course, and for everything that happened ever since, including the issue of negotiations, will be examined with our democratic institutions. I wish I could say the same about the Gaza Strip. Hopefully, after this war, they'll have a democracy, a real democracy that will protect them, that will safeguard them as well. Hamas is not the one that should lead them.
Yes, critical to also remember the many thousands of people killed in Gaza. Moshe Lavi, who continues to campaign for your brother-in-law, Omri Miran. Thank you so much for speaking to us here on BBC News. We wish Lishai and the girls all the best. Thank you, Moshe. And just want to bring you images